Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm making this video to show you guys how to install and bleed a KTM hydraulic slave cylinder. This type, this is the old type. This is found on KTM 2-strokes, 125s, 150s, 200s, old LC4s, and maybe some other bikes, I'm not really sure. Alright, so here's the original slave. I replaced this O-ring with actually an oversized O-ring, and I used very fine sandpaper, I think like 600 grit and then maybe 800 grit to smooth out this the cylinder walls in here. And even after doing that and replacing the O-ring, this thing was still leaking like crazy, and it even seized up at one point. I could not pull the lever at all. So I bit the bullet, I stopped trying to repair it, and I just bought an Oberon. So the new Oberon is what you see on the bike right now. I installed it yesterday, and it came with a gasket like this. This is the old one. And I actually used some gasket maker RTV, this stuff, just to double ensure that I would not be seeing mineral oil come out of the bottom of this thing. The gasket should be all dry by now, since it was about 24 hours ago that I set this. So the first thing we're gonna do is just pull this cap out. The kit came with new copper washers for the banjo bolt, which is nice. So the first thing you want to do, I've already cleaned this, but you just want to make sure the threads are all clean before they're going in. You don't want any dirt and stuff in there. Alright. And that just fits there like that. I believe it's a 13. Yes. Now you don't want to strip it, obviously, but you want to make sure that these copper washers get crushed on there and provide a proper seal. That's about good right there. Now I know not everyone can afford to buy a new KTM, so like me, I got mine on Craigslist. And you might find things are worn out that you did not immediately notice when you bought the bike. Like this bleeder screw is actually almost completely rounded. So I'm not going to put a wrench on it, but I am going to use an 8mm socket because that does grab it okay, and it doesn't feel like it's going to strip, so a socket may be the move. Alright, so here we have the slave on, the line is connected, and we're going to go up here to the master cylinder, and we're just going to start filling the reservoir with fluid. Alright, so I have my bike leaning at a bit of an angle using a strap on this tree. I've done that so that the master cylinder at pretty much the highest point on the bike right now. And we are going to use gravity to help us bleed the slave because I don't have a syringe, and this method honestly worked pretty well with these Magura clutches. I'm just using mineral oil. I got it at Walgreens. I made the mistake of buying some expensive Motor X, you know, KTM Swiss oil is like 13 bucks for this little thing. My slave still leaked and I ended up just wasting it all. So I highly recommend go to your local Walgreens. It's like 7 bucks and it's a lot of mineral oil. Alright, so I don't know if you guys can tell, but I haven't even started to fill the reservoir, and mineral oil that was already in the line and in the reservoir is starting to come out, and that's just from gravity. I've filled my little bottle with mineral oil, and I'm gonna start filling the reservoir. And so you just have to keep an eye on it and make sure it never gets below the line and it sucks air, because if it sucks air, you're just creating more work for yourself, and you're just gonna be bleeding for a while. Alright, I've got a nice line there. You guys can see the fluid come through. It's just slowly moving through the system. And some people will tell you, and honestly you can do this, is you can just pour mineral oil in the cylinder before you attach the line, and you can do that, or you cannot. I've found it works both ways, and I forgot this time, so I'm doing it this way. Alright, so here you guys can see I've added a little more, and I'm just sitting here in my chair with my beer, and I'm just watching these bubbles come out. And that's really all there is to it. You just gotta wait and make sure that reservoir doesn't run out. So I'm just moving the lever about a ½ inch, and it's just enough to advance the fluid a little bit. I'm not even opening and closing the bleeder valve. I just have it open, and I'm just pulling the lever about a ½ inch, and then letting go and squeezing it again, just rapidly like that. It's looking pretty good. Oh, there's a few. Ooh, here we go. And it does sometimes help to like tap the line, tap the slave, and tap the master cylinder with a wrench or something, just to knock any bubbles loose. It especially helps to do that up at the master cylinder. Sometimes bubbles get trapped up at the top. If you find yourself bleeding forever and your thing's still spongy and you're not seeing bubbles, you probably have bubbles trapped at the top of your line near your master cylinder. That's where I would start. We're done bleeding, so I'm just gonna tighten that with my thumb, pull the hose off. Just snug that up. You don't want to crush these, because you can actually, if you tighten it too much, you'll actually crush the end of these bleeder screws. Have a tapered point that comes down, and you can actually crush it if you tighten it too much. So snug them up kind of tight, but not too tight. Every time I have bled this clutch, I always end up with a lot of little bubbles up here at the top, and I just kind of play with the lever, and they just kind of come out. And as you do that, you will start to feel the clutch as it starts to operate like it should. Alright, so the sleeve is bled, the clutch feels good, and I'm just going to spray down with some brake cleaner just to get rid of any mineral oil and stuff on there, so that later I can tell if this thing's leaking or not. Fingers crossed it is not. Just wipe away. And when I did install this, I just did a thin layer of gasket RTV on both sides of the gasket. The bike did not previously have any RTV on it, but I've never had success with those paper gaskets, so I always use RTV anytime oil is behind them. And there's actually engine oil behind this as well, so you know, why not? Alright, it seems to be oil free, and let's hope it remains that way on the outside.